Most people scroll past old photos like they're just dust in an attic. That stops now. So what if one of those images was the last time a living creature was ever seen? And how does a species go from walking the earth to existing only in a photograph? In this video, you're about to see the final known photos of 5 animals that once lived on our planet, along with the short story behind each one. Number 5. Northern White Rhino. The northern white rhino was once part of a species that ranged across Central Africa. Poaching and conflict left just a handful. The man you'll see in the photos is Sudan, the last adult male of the northern white subspecies. The image that spread around the world shows him surrounded by caretakers, tired but monumental. It passed away in 2018 at the Old Payeta Conservancy. His death left only 2 females of that subspecies, both unable to breed naturally. The photographs from that time show not just an animal close to extinction, but also the human effort and sorrow around trying to save it. Sudan was born around 1973 in what is now South Sudan. As a young rhino, he was captured from the wild and spent many years at the Dvor Králové Zoo in the Czech Republic before being moved to Kenya in 2009. There he lived under round-the-clock guard with the 2 remaining females, Najin and Fatu. All 3 were under heavy protection because northern white rhinos are extinct in the wild, a result of intense poaching for their horns and years of conflict disrupting their habitats. The last clear images of Sudan show a large, heavy-set animal standing or grazing in the Kenyan reserve, often with armed guards nearby. Today, the remaining 2 females are still alive at Old Payeta, but without a male, they cannot reproduce without scientific intervention. Global efforts now focus on advanced reproductive techniques, hoping that frozen genetic material may one day lead to a calf that carries on the northern white rhino lineage. This photo is a last stand, an animal and a human effort that could not bring the line back. Stay with me, because the next one walked slowly into fame on a volcanic island. Number 4. Pinta Island Tortoise, Lonesome. Georg Lonesome. George was a giant Galapagos tortoise moved to a research station after his island lost most of its tortoises. The photos show a broad, heavy-shelled animal with curious eyes. He became both a celebrity and a conservation message. George died in 2012, and with him, the Pinta Island subspecies was declared extinct. Conservationists tried to mate him with related tortoises for years with no success. His image, walking slowly, solitary, is now used worldwide to show what extinction looks like in a single frame. George was discovered in 1971 on Pinta Island, one of the many islands in the Galapagos chain. At that time, he was believed to be the last of his kind, a reminder that human-linked impacts could wipe out an entire group forever. After being brought to the research station on Santa Cruz Island, scientists and keepers monitored him closely. For decades, they searched for a mate, sometimes pairing him with females from closely related islands. None of these attempts succeeded, and George never produced offspring. In the last clear photographs of George show him walking slowly on the sandy grounds of the station, his thick shell marked by years of sun and life. These images, often shared with captions about loss and urgency, helped raise awareness about threats to species across the world. Tourists, scientists, and students came to see him, hoping that his presence might draw attention to the value of protecting other animals before it's too late. When he died, his body was studied and preserved so that future generations could learn from him. Parts of his shell and skeleton were placed in museums, and his story remains a central example in conservation education materials. This slow, solitary walk became a symbol of an entire subspecies' final chapter. Now imagine a bird once so common that whole coasts knew its name, and then nothing. Stay with me, because the next one shows how hunting ended a seabird. Number 3. Great Auk. Think big, awkward seabirds that couldn't fly. The great auk was a common sight on rocky coasts throughout the North Atlantic. Here's the image you can point to, a preserved specimen and the records that follow it. The last confirmed pair were killed on Eldey Island, Iceland, in 1844. That pair's death closed a chapter for a species that ended as quickly as it had been hunted. The great auk stood about 75 centimeters tall and weighed around 5 kilograms. It looked a lot like the penguins in the southern hemisphere, but it wasn't closely related to them. Instead, its wings were built for swimming, not flying. and it spent much of its life diving for fish in the cold North Atlantic waters. They nested in dense colonies on remote rocky islands such as Funk Island near Newfoundland and St. Kilda in Scotland. For centuries, the birds were an easy resource for humans. Explorers and fishermen hunted them for meat, eggs, feathers, and oil. As their numbers fell, museum collectors and wealthy buyers began to offer high prices for skins and eggs, making them even more hunted despite their declining population. On June 3, 1844, on a small rock off the coast of Iceland, the last known breeding pair was cornered, killed, and their single egg destroyed. After that, reports of individuals continued for a few years, but none were confirmed. A sighting from 1852 near Newfoundland is often mentioned as the last possible record, but it's not accepted universally. Yet a single photo shows how fast humans can erase a species that once seemed endless. Stay with me, because the next one lived closer to home and surprised a lot of people. Number 2. Carolina parakeet. Most people don't know the United States once had a native parrot. It did. The Carolina parakeet was loud and colorful. People kept them as pets. They were hunted, trapped, and squeezed out by farmers clearing forests. Here's the last known captive bird, Incus, photographed at rest. The image shows feathers that scream wild, but the cage tells the end of the story. Records show the last wild sightings fell off by 1900. The final captive bird died in 1918 at the same zoo that cared for Martha. That double loss, a pigeon and a parrot, is a sharp example of how quickly human pressures can erase species. Incus had lived for years at the Cincinnati Zoo with his mate Lady Jane, but they never produced a surviving chick. Even when her eggs were laid, they were often rejected or broke before hatching, leaving no new generation to take their place. Pictures from those last years show a bird with bright coloring in a small cage, watched by keepers who could do little to help. The parakeet's range once filled skies with sound and color. Today, only museums and old photographs capture what was once a real part of American forests and fields. A bright bird in a cage, the photo is a quiet record of rapid local collapse. Now, think smaller, quieter, a bird most people never even knew existed. And the last photo tells you exactly how close it came to surviving. Number 1. Dusky seaside sparrow picture salt marshes on Florida's Atlantic coast. Well, that landscape once held an ember of song, the dusky seaside sparrow. The dusky seaside sparrow was first discovered in the 19th century and remained common for decades, but changes to its habitat, including flooding marshes for mosquito control and draining land for construction, gradually reduced its range. By the late 1970s, there were only a handful of males left, and no females had been seen since 1975. Efforts to save the bird included capturing the last known males and attempting a breeding program with a closely related subspecies, but this failed to produce viable, pure dusky offspring. The sparrows were moved to a protected area at Walt Disney World's Discovery Island, but one by one they died. Orange lingered the longest, surviving into the mid-1980s despite being blind in one eye. When he died in June 1987, and it marked the end of this unique songbird. What remains is limited to documented photographs and a stored physical sample. One small bird holds the weight of an entire ecosystem. We see loss in a single frame.